Hello, this is Lindsay up from the Quilt Quine, and today we're going to be looking at the boundary feature. This is what I would use if I was going to be quilting simple motif in many different blocks on a quilt. They might be different sized blocks. I might be using multiple patterns, or it's particularly useful if the blocks that I'm quilting happen to be rather wonky. So the block that I'm choosing from my design center is Celia 1. So I'm going to just bring it up into the safe area. There it is, it's blue. And as soon as I click it, it goes red. So I'll just shift it out of the way. Now I am going to be fitting this motif into a fairly wonky block. So this is why I'm choosing the boundary icon, which is here. So I happen to want it to morph to fit, which means that even if the block is particularly wonky, it will try and spread it equally throughout that wonkiness. I could click maintain ratio, which would make sure that the motif stayed nice and neat all over, but it didn't try and fit into the wonky block. To be on the safe side, I don't particularly want the block to go right into the wonky corners, so I'm going to set up a margin of 0.5 inches, 0.5. So the next thing I need to do is tell the system where this has to go. So I'm going to click sew head so that I can select the 4 corners of my block. So over to my sew head, and I've got a block drawn out on my practice piece. So I go to the first corner, click set. Go around to the next one, set. Third corner, set. Fourth corner, set. Back to the screen, and we can see that the system has marked a black box, a little bit wonky as you can see, but that is where the system knows the block has to go on the quilt. So I'm going to give this a green check, and you will watch the red motif jump over and almost fill the space that it's got to fill. There it is. So it's ready to sew. So I click play or start sewing. It goes green. I want it to go to the start point, which happens to be in the middle of the block. Sew head takes itself there. I go to the sew head to pick up the bobbin thread. And I grab the tails, press green for go on the sew head. I hold the tails for a minute while it does a few stitches. Trim off the ends. I allow the sew head to stitch out the design. Sewing is complete. Okay. Over to the sew head to lift up the bobbin thread, cut the threads. And that block is complete, which is why it has gone grey on the screen. If I click it now, it will go red. I can move it over and get it ready to position onto another block, which might be a different size or shape. and then I could resize it. The reason I chose the boundary feature, just to reiterate, was because I can set a margin, or I can ask it to go right into the corners. It's slightly different from using block markers, but just because it's different doesn't mean it's no. It's slightly different to using block markers, but as I have said before, there are many ways of doing the same thing using Qmatic. I hope that helped.